Man City have now shown a template about how to do it without going direct. It wasn't losing to Man City. It wasn't even the 3-0. For me, it was just the dominance of Man City. That first half, really, Man City totally controlled it. The tactics from Guardiola, and listen, Pep Linders is there as well. Us not being able to control the central areas of the pitch against direct play, and now against teams that want to overload the middle of the pitch and use a short passing style as well, is a concern and something that we need to find a solution to moving forward this season.
Hello everyone, welcome to Pressing Matters with Paul Dalglish. I'm Chris Pajak and we are here. We promised you guests, but the guests are going to have to wait because Liverpool got whooped by Manchester City, Paul, and I think you wanted to talk about, and I wanted to talk about just what's going on with the team at the moment. It's important to talk about it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's just, for me, it's it's a very rare occurrence in modern times for us to lose 5 out of 6 games. And as always with us, it's more like trying to show a little bit of insight into how we can fix it, really. Like, explain why it's happening and then a solution to try and fix it. And it's a similar solution to what was the solution to fix the long ball setup. I just think that we've got a few too many square pegs in round holes at this moment in time. And I think the game against Man City, it could have been a lot worse. You know, I think they obviously you look at you look at a 3-0 scoreline, but the actual chances that they created weren't like of a high level. The goals that they actually managed to get, it was unfortunate for Liverpool, if I'm honest.
And it could have been so much different if we hadn't had a goal incorrectly ruled out.
It could have been, and then you analyse the outcome. But for me, it was, they totally controlled the game. Really, they controlled the middle of the pitch, and that's the more worrying thing for me. I think Liverpool actually got away with. Well, it's hard to say they got away with it, but I don't actually think chances wise, Man City really put us to the sword how they could have done.
Absolutely. So we'll get into all of that on today's episode, of course. What we want to do, first of all, is thank our partner for today's show, though. That is Oosh. Get involved at oosh.co.uk. Daily prizes from as little as 99 pence, and you can use the code Redmen, REDMEN, for 20% off. As an example, you got 7 nights in Dubai here. Ticket is just $2.99 with your 20% off. You'll get it for cheaper, and I ain't going to do the maths on that one, but I guess it's around about 60 pence. So 7 nights in Dubai for just $2.99. Get involved at oosh.co.uk. We are here because of them, because of Paul, and to talk about Liverpool. So let's get into it. Simply put, Paul, you mentioned a word there that I think is going to be the theme of the show. Space.
Yeah, and I think that's what it really is about. I think if you look at the running data from the games, like people are saying, Liverpool, like McAllister looks a bit leggy, or Liverpool look a bit leggy, or they're actually running more, I believe, than last season is what the data is showing. But the problem they've got is the players, the distance between the players is much bigger this season.
So what you're talking about here, if we were to look at it on the board, you're talking about the spacing between the players is bigger. And what does that? Yeah. Why does that mean? So
basically, when you've got spacing between players in a transition moment, what it does is every attacking formation has a consequence defensively. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, if you want to be a counter-pressing team, which Liverpool have been for a while, until really this season, really, and even maybe we transitioned a little bit at the end of Jurgen into more of a control-based team. Mm-hmm. But basically, if you want to be a counter-pressing team, then you can only counter-press if you're close enough to the ball in the transition moment. So if you've got an expansive formation and the ball's given away here, the distances for these players in a transition moment to actually close down the ball is much bigger. Whereas if you all of a sudden, say for instance, now you've got players, you play a more short passing game, and your players are a little bit closer together, then in the transition moment, the distances to press are much smaller, and then you can actually regain the ball quicker. So you've got less areas. Defending really is about space. If you've got the more space you have, the harder it is to defend. And what we found with Liverpool this season is people are saying, "Oh, Konate has dropped off, Van Dijk's dropped off," but the truth is they're just having to defend because of the tactical setup. They're having to defend bigger spaces, which makes it more difficult for them to defend.
And what about this man here? What's his name?
Ekitike. I read the comments. I read the comments, Chris. I read the comments. Some people find it funny. Some people really don't find it funny. So Ekitike. Ekitike, yeah, I've got it.
He's trying his best.
Mate.
He's trying his best.
Honestly.
Even upstairs, I was like, Ekitike. You're like, I'll just write it on my hand.
I will write on my... Well, there we go. There we go. So I won't get it wrong today. What was it called? Etikite?
Yeah.
I had a few goes at different ones.
You tried a few wild ones.
But yeah, no, Ekitike. Got it.
There we go.
There we go.
So yeah, Paul's reading the comments. We're reading the comments. We're trying to improve. They are just genuine mistakes, aren't they?
And I think that's one of the reasons why we did another tactics show, is because the comments were really positive about giving the insight and trying to explain it in an easy to understand manner. I think it was
well received.
I think it was your own Cruyff said, didn't he? He said, if I wanted you to understand, I would have explained it better.
Yeah, absolutely. So there we go. We're going to explain it all now. We're going to start off with a graphic, actually, Paul. It's you can see Manchester City in defensive shape, and this is all to set up what we want to talk about in the show, so please bear with us. But it's a 4-1-4-1 defensively. What is it that you can see that Man City are trying to do with this?
Well, what I think you can see the difference, if you look at Man City's structure, and we can stick them in a little bit. If you look at the midfield five, let's say, if you look at Doku, not a defender, you wouldn't say that he was a player that you would say could get the ball back very well. Not a defensive minded player. Foden the same. Bernardo Silva, Cherky. So what? Obviously, Pep Guardiola knows that these aren't traditional defensive-minded midfield players, but they've got other qualities, which is their ability on the ball. So what Guardiola did is he said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them less space to defend.
Less space,
yeah. So what they've done is, so if you look how compact they are in that graphic, they are so compact. If you look at the distances, say the lines on the pitch, say they're 8 yards, the 8 yards on the pitch. So you've got about 20 yards from front to back, right? And then if you work out the width, it's 44 yards, the width of the penalty box. Their back four is well within it. There's maybe 10-yard gaps between the back four. But if you look at the midfield four in front of the holding midfield player, they're very, very, very narrow. You maybe got a 20-yard distance between them. So they've got like the 3, 7, 6, 7, 8 yards between them. So now Liverpool, one, they've controlled the middle of the pitch because they've got a central dominance. Haaland, if you look, he's got connected to the two midfield players as well. What happens from this is now they're protecting the middle of the pitch. You've got to remember that Liverpool have become very expansive and have got players on the wide area of the pitch, but the goals are central. So if you're going to control any area of a football pitch, it makes sense to control the space where the goals are.
And so I suppose in sort of tactics speak, this is zone 14, isn't it? You're looking to try and get into zone 14 in this area of the field to take your shots off and build up from and stuff. And Manchester City are really defending those dangerous areas on the field. Well,
I think the most that you can actually see the breakdown of where goals come from in a game, and it's an area on the edge of the box, and even in these spaces here.
Yeah, anywhere inside the 6-yard box.
Well, even like the areas, like a big dome around, and it's normally, so you want to stop people getting into your penalty box. Most things that happen in football games are a result of what happens in the penalty box. So what they did is they really defended the central area as well. But in saying that, Chris, and I think you don't want to have outcome-based analysis. They never actually created that many chances in the penalty box as Man City. And the chances that they got are really lucky, to be honest. But
the goals that they got, do you think?
Yeah, and I actually think, that's why I say they controlled the game. I think they controlled the space. They controlled the middle of the pitch, which is the most important area to control. But I actually don't think they were... I think we could have got a really sore one with the amount of dominance that they had if they'd have been a bit more effective in possession.
Okay. Well, let's look at some of the build-up and stuff then as well, Paul, because I think it's important to try and understand what they were trying to do out of possession and in possession, and then we can talk again about what these solutions potentially could be. So we'll bring up the next graphic now, please, Aaron, and you can see, talk me through what they're trying to achieve. This is from a free kick, and Diaz is actually taking the free kick right now. So this is they've had time to set everything exactly how they want.
Well, if basically what they want to do is it's classic. It's a classic kind of build-up formation. So if we set it up here, so we've got Diaz on the ball there, 2 centre backs. They've got one there. They've got one here.
Should I get rid of the Liverpool players for this?
If you want, yeah. So what you want to try and do? So what the traditional Barcelona kind of way of playing, which is what Guardiola is come from, is you want to try and create build-up diamonds. So if you look, you've got your 2 centre-backs here, you've got your goalkeeper, you've got your holding midfield player, and now you've got 4 players here that create a diamond. Now, the reason you want to create a diamond is because it's the least amount of numbers. It gives you a left option, a forward option, and a right option. So you can play in every direction within a diamond, and that's why they talk about playing like build-up diamonds. And sometimes we look at 11v11, it's too complex. What we've got to look at is break it down into smaller pits within the formation, because sometimes when the ball's on this side, that's not really relevant. But what they would do is, if you look here, so if you look, when the ball comes here to a centre-back, now this player is now blocking the line into the player at the top of the diamond. So you've got to create that line of pass. So by checking inside, right, when this player's on the ball, and this one checks down, now you've created an outside diamond to build up in. Now,
and this is a famous Guardiola. Don't be in the same line as other players, because you can't then have a diamond.
That's it. And there's rules of the diamond as well that he would talk about. And this is, without going too much into it, but this is kind of when you go, well, I went on a coaching journey, and you look at Barcelona and you go, why are they so good? And you just watch them and you just think they've got great players, but you don't actually understand the detail that goes into it. So they would have rules of the diamond. They would do passing drills that had rules of the diamond. So they would do passing drills within a diamond formation. And the distances of the passing drill would be the same distances that they would find themselves in the build-up phase of the game. And if it was these 2 players can't be in the same line, so if one of them comes short, this one needs to be higher, because somebody always needs to be able to support the forward pass for the set. They'd have rules of the diamond where if this player is marked, what the best thing this player can do is go forward. So if this player is marked and they can't go forward, then the ball is played to this side, information on the pass, so they could set it with the right foot and it comes back. If this player isn't marked, then it can go to the back foot and they can turn and they can get out. So it's all different rules of the diamond, and Man City will work on this on a daily basis.
Just to get in on there, if the ball's played to this side of him, is he telling you, what's he telling him? There's someone behind you.
So what you would do is, that would be, and it's important to use the right foot. So your body has to be at the correct angle. And if you look at the body positions of the Man City players, they'll be in a position where they can play forward and back. Most of them will be side on, right? Most of them will be side on. So this would be, if you're marked, it'll be a front foot set. So you want to, if the ball is played, if this player is marked, so just bring in one Liverpool player, say McAllister, comes in. If he's marked, then if the ball is played to this side and you set the ball with your right foot, you're facing inside. You set the ball with your right foot, the defender can never get it. Now, if you were to try and set the ball back with your left foot, now McAllister's got a chance to nibble. If McAllister's here and he's in this position, now all of a sudden the player on the ball, information on the pass, you've got no one behind you. Now it can go to the back foot, the left foot, who can turn out, and then they can dribble and they can.
So this is a way of telling people on the field where your nearest marker is by just moving where the football lands.
Yeah, and what you'd also see is, so basically, if we go back to the way they were set up, centre back on the ball, So if this centre-back is in a wide position, right, as they start getting wider, then that's how you can create the diamond. And then what would happen is, just so you've got protection against failure, this player gets into a security position in the middle, the holding midfield player. Then this centre-back doesn't have to come all the way across. So if it breaks down, you've always got protection. If, for whatever reason, the centre-back is central, right? If the centre-back is central, now there's no space for this one to drop in. So now to create your build-up diamond, you can do it in a different way. Because this player's not dropping in, they can now come across. So what you would do is you would then have this player, the midfielder, check into this space. You'd have your midfield player, your 6 come across, this one check in. Now you've got this one's out the game, but you've still created 4 players to build up with.
And in this instance, this is Cherky, and in this instance, this is Nunes.
Yeah.
This is Bernardo Silva. Yeah. This is Nico Gonzalez. This is Ruben Diaz.
And if we bring in, so what they would always do is, so when they were building up, if we put McAllister in, if we put Zoboslai, who was pressing, with Ekitike, right? You've got Wirtz, you've got Robbo, Van Dijk, Konat, you've got Gravenberch, and you've got Salah. So what we were doing, we were pressing a 4. So now, what with these being quite like this, with this 6 here, and you've got a goalkeeper as well, at times, this would happen, right? Gravenberch would step in, and now you've got one there, or maybe it was this way round, because they're trying to get pressure on the 6. Now what that does is, now Wirtz is in a problem. If Wirtz worries about the midfield player that's checked out, now you've got a midfield player in this space, in the half spaces, which was where they really dominated the game. Now you've got a midfield player free, because what Haaland did a great job of doing is, he kept these 2 close together. So he occupied the 2 centre-backs, so they couldn't step into this space. With this full-back being here, now Robbo's got 2 to worry about. So if Robbo goes in there, now all of a sudden, that's a free run there, which we saw at times. If Robbo...
Both right side and left side, we saw O'Reilly running behind Salah, we both saw Nunes for the first goal get high and wide.
Yeah, if Robbo stays there, right? If Robbo stays there, because of this one pushing on, now you've got all the space in here as well. And it wasn't just this one, right? But we're looking at this one was coming all the way across as well. Doku was coming across. And what they did is they really used these 4 in midfield to just create a central dominance against these 2. And they controlled it, but with them being so close together compared to Liverpool, if the ball did break down, then they had lots of players that could counter-press in that transition moment.
Okay. So in terms of the next graphic then, they weren't static in their approach to the build-up, and I've got a couple of different things here, and I think it follows on from what you were saying. So if we can put that first one up now, please, Aaron. These are the midfielder rotations. This is Silva dropping in. Gonzalez, the 6, higher up the pitch, Phil Foden, etc., etc. If we move quickly on to the next one, Aaron, you've then got Foden and Silva dropping deep to provide options, diamond, and Gonzalez not being in a straight line from Foden. There, you can almost imagine the diamond that you've just drawn out. But crucially, Gonzalez is in space behind the press. So they've brought people in. And then if we go on to the third one as well, I think this is what you've kind of just illustrated, and probably the biggest point ultimately. They've got 6 people centrally in there, and there's that square around Liverpool's press. And I've just highlighted on this image Cherky where he should be, and Doku where he should be, but those both moving inside to create that central dominance. So in effect, Robertson's got a choice already. He either goes inside to Cherky or he pushes up. This time he doesn't do anything. But
Robbo, I mean, the shadow is where you're saying he should be.
Normal. I'm not saying he should be. I'm saying normally you'd think of a winger out there. I actually
think if he's there, he's defending himself, because it's easy for Robbo to mark. So I actually think it's not where he should be. It's where traditionally a wide player would be.
Yes.
But what Guardiola has done, he said, right, with Liverpool defending in this 4-2-4 and having success pressing against Aston Villa, having success pressing against Real Madrid, I'm going to create a central dominance. And that one that was just up there, the one that was just up, this is exactly what we drew up with Silva. It's exactly what we drew up with Silva. And I think Wirtz and Ekitike have actually swapped on this occasion.
Yeah, they have, you're right.
Right, so I think it's like that. But now, because this centre-back central, right, this one's checked outside, now we're in here. Now Robbo can't go, you know.
Robbo can't go with...
Robbo can't go
Cherky
in
inside.
Here. And it's like a real dilemma because he can drop down and he can get it. They've created, you can actually see that diamond there with Silva, Gonzalez, Cherky.
Actually, if you ignore the blue box there, I think what you're trying to say is Silva's got Gonzalez, Cherky, and he's also got Nunes to pass to.
Yeah.
In that one split second.
Yeah. Well, he's created, hasn't he? He's got Gonzalez as a left option.
Yeah.
He's got Nunes as a right option. And he's got Cherky
straight ahead.
But look, if you look back, he's also got protection behind him. He's got a get out of jail free card, which is a backward pass to then switch play. So which is Diaz as well. So and the other key bit to this is Haaland. So Haaland, one of the things is people say, oh, he didn't do much or he wasn't getting involved. He was constantly occupying Van Dijk and Konate that didn't allow them to step into midfield to be able to help.
So, I mean, we've talked about rotations. We can talk quickly just about attacking rotations. It's actually build up to the first goal.
Yeah.
So the first one here, we've got David Silva on the ball. Nunes is high and wide.
Yeah.
Again, they've got their positions next to them because they're all slightly ajar.
Yeah.
Because they're all trying to find space.
Yeah. And this Liverpool's structure comes from defending a corner. This comes from a long ball from Man City, a breakaway where Van Dijk and Robertson have switched.
Yes, they've had to switch. So Robertson's in at centre half, Van Dijk's in at left back at this position. Yeah. Silva then plays the pass to Nunes and immediately switches positions, causing a little bit of communication, if not confusion, between Liverpool's two midfielders, McAllister and Wirtz in this instance. Now, this interchange of positions, Paul, is just about finding space, isn't it?
Yeah, it really. But what Cherky and Silva could do is, if one of them is marked, so if in this situation. And I don't know if we could complicate if we start using everybody. But if you've got, the key to it is Haaland being here, right? This is the key to it. Because this allows no centre-backs to step in, right? So if you've got, say traditionally it would be Silva here and Cherky here. If Silva starts getting too high and they start getting too close together, they can switch. Because they're both comfortable doing either or. And now it doesn't really matter. As long as you've got somebody in this space and somebody protecting against transition. Because this player does two jobs in this situation. This player, not only, one of the things that you've got to have is an option back, right? But you've got to think defensively as well. This player is the security position, the safety position. This player stops transition. And is also in a position to counter-press if it breaks down. And that was the thing about Man City. Because the players were so close to each other, they always had the option to counter-press in that transition moment.
Absolutely. And so I suppose, the whole point of the video is it's great that you can analyse something, you can look back on something, and I think we do a good job of that generally as a fan base and as fan media. But solutions are missing at times, and you offered up a solution a couple of weeks ago when we did the last Pressing Matters. And what do you think Liverpool have to change to dominate the central areas, to control the space in the game, to do what Manchester City did to us? My biggest concern,
if I'm honest, my biggest concern at this moment in time is that if you look at, and if anybody wants to look it up, they can. If you look at style of play against Liverpool, after the Newcastle game in the cup final, where Newcastle had success going direct against Liverpool with Isak up front. Have I said that right? Yeah. I got in trouble for that one as well.
Isaac,
did I call him Isaac?
Isaac, yeah. It's right. It's right on that hand.
So I when they got what that created a template, and that's what we saw a lot of teams do at the beginning of the season. When teams have played Liverpool, they've said Liverpool, because of their expansive setup, and because of the profile really of these midfield players. If you look at Gravenberch is probably the one that you would say that gets it back. He's got, in terms of, he's got the legs to get around, and he can actually make a tackle when he gets there. If you look at McAllister is competitive, but maybe not have the legs to be able to cover the distance to win the second ball. And then if you look at Szoboszlai, he's got the legs, but his strength isn't winning the ball back and tackling. He can lead the press, but actually his ability to tackle and be physical isn't his strength. So what they've looked at is they said, we're going to go up to a striker, ball's going to go long, Liverpool are going to be expansive, and we're going to have numbers around the ball. We're going to have numbers when it drops to pick up the second ball. And that has been a template. If you look at the data and it shows you team style of play against everyone else and team style of play against Liverpool, it is off the charts more direct against Liverpool because they've seen this as a weakness after the Newcastle game. So when we spoke last time, it was about protecting. It was about protecting against direct play. What I'm a little bit concerned about is Man City have now shown a template about how to do it without going direct, how to do it, expose Liverpool's central midfield area, if you like, without going direct. We got away. We were good against Aston Villa because they tried to play through the press, but they didn't overload the central area as much as Man City did. Real Madrid, we did well in the press, especially in the first half, but they didn't overload the central areas. They might have had a plan to do it because they played Camavinga on the right-hand side.
That was a strange one.
They played with one winger, but maybe they had a similar plan, but Liverpool just were effective with the press. But Man City showed that if you can dominate these half spaces on the football field, the inside channels, then you can really, really cause Liverpool trouble by being a patient build-up, playing through the thirds, but dominating the centre of the pitch.
What did you think about the manager's press conference after the game and him speaking about that first half?
He basically said what we're taught, and that's why we're not exposing secrets. Arne said after the game that Man City controlled the central areas of the pitch, and they did. And
should he have known that going into the game? To be fair.
Well, that's the he doesn't. You don't know going into the game what the opposition are going to do.
Felt like he did last season, though.
Well, no, I think because, but you've also got to flip that and say, do people know what Liverpool are going to do? And I think at times we can. I think it's very difficult to know exactly. You've got analysts, you've got you've got coaching staff, you've got yourself, the manager, that will analyse who you're playing next, and you can come up with an idea of how the opposition's going to play, but you don't actually know till you go out there, especially with Guardiola. He changes tactics.
It's almost the first time he's just kind of carried on with what he's doing against Liverpool for a long time, because it felt like against Jurgen he would go mad plan after mad plan after mad plan, but actually, Slot gets the better of Guardiola, I think, tactically twice last season, 2-0 victories, one better than the other, certainly the Anfield one. This time around, it felt like Guardiola just did what he normally does, and to great effect, though. And I think he had a plan for Wirtz off the left as well.
Yeah, and I think what if you look at what Man City did with the defensive setup, he was always going into bodies. Now, when as we say, if we keep going about space, right? We keep going about space. Man City, they got really compact. The spacing in the graphic that we had earlier about the 4-1-4-1 and the spaces between them, there was no space for Wirtz to play. And people are saying he got, I think it was Gary Neville and a few others saying he looked like he got manhandled and whatever the term he were paraphrasing. But I actually don't think, I think he was just, the amount of space that he had to play in compared to the space they had to play in against Real Madrid was much smaller because Man City defensively were positioned a lot better than what Real Madrid were.
So so moving back onto this, then what do you think? How do Liverpool control the space?
I don't think we have, in my opinion, I said we're looking at solutions. I don't think we have two players. I don't think we have two players that are capable of defending well enough and controlling the space well enough to play in a 4-2-3-1.
And are you talking specifically about these two players? I'm
talking about whichever combination that we've tried, whether that be Szoboszlai and Gravenberch, or whether that be McAllister and Gravenberch with Szoboszlai in front. At times we've had Wirtz in front with these two there. We've had Szoboszlai at right back.
You're talking Jones in this as well?
We're talking Jones has played a couple of games as well, but I just think that we need the way we're playing with how expansive we are with if you look at the profile, Salah has been arguably, he's been arguably Liverpool's most effective player of the Premier League era. He is, but he's never had to defend. He's never expected to defend. He's never. So I think with the change to a 2 and a 1, it now asks things of Salah that he's never been asked for before. And people are saying, his legs might have gone, or this might have happened, or that. He's actually been asked to do, and people are getting frustrated that why isn't he back there like Doku was? Why isn't he back there like Cherki was on the other side to get back into a defensive formation? He's never been asked to do that. So we don't want to ask Salah at his age, with the success that he's had, to do things that he's never really been asked to do before. When I honestly, and I keep going back to it, I think Ekitike, right, is a much more linear player. I think he has played so many games. He has played so many games for his previous club, Frankfurt, as a split striker on the left-hand side. He looks like, even when he plays as a striker, he wants to drift to this left-hand side. That's his natural place that he drifts to. You've also got to remember that Salah's going away for the African nations. So he is the only player, left-footed right winger, that we've got.
Yep.
Now, when he goes, then we spoke about, is it going to be Frimpong, who's a completely different profile? It's a completely different profile. I just think that what we've done is we've acquired players in the summer. And look, time will tell how they work out, because the one thing that you can never do with Liverpool is underestimate the weight of the jersey. How much of it. Some people come to Liverpool and they can come with the best intentions. They can come. Sometimes it's just a heavy shirt. The pressure of expectation of playing for Liverpool, Man United, is much greater in this country than playing for anybody else. And people can either come here and thrive, or they can come here and it can really affect them. So I think we've signed some unbelievable players. I really do. Not all of them have hit the ground running. Not all of them are in peak form at this moment in time. But I do think that we have players to be a lot more effective than what we're currently being. So
do you think the formation that you said a couple of weeks ago, with the flat three of Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, behind maybe a Florian Wirtz with an Ekitike and a Salah, or maybe an Isak up front there, would have actually solved the issues we had against Manchester City and could potentially solve the long ball issues that we've been struggling against.
It definitely, if you've got players in this half space now, then all of a sudden now you have players naturally in positions that can defend the spaces where Man City were doubling up. Man City had we looked on this side with Cherky and Silva that were rotating.
Yeah.
Right? They were rotating. Now you've got numbers. And the other thing that can happen as well is if these two stay up, this one can come back in. So now all of a sudden you've got numbers, you're closer together, and it would have helped because they targeted this half space. The problem you've got when someone like Haaland plays, when Haaland goes up against the two centre-backs, it keeps them close together. Now you've got a gap. Now you've got a gap to fill. Yeah. Right? So if Robbo comes out...
So you need a midfielder to do that.
A midfielder can drop in there. This one can come across. Now, what should happen if you want to do it within the existing setup, right? So if you've got McAllister, Szoboszlai, well, let's put Szoboszlai there and let's put that there. If they are closer together, the problem is we've got that. So Szoboszlai's pressing
from a 4.
Let me take this one off. Well, it's on the left-hand side. Szoboszlai's pressing from a 4, right? So because he's pressing from a 4, if McAllister does go and fill this gap, there's no one to fill there. If Szoboszlai, in the existing formation, we started narrower, and Szoboszlai was more connected to these midfield players. If McAllister does go in, then Szoboszlai can fill that gap as the 10.
And what we saw in actually the build-up to that goal is that it was left to McAllister and Wirtz.
Yeah.
And we didn't actually really notice Szoboszlai and Gravenberch because they're not really involved.
Yeah.
Because of their positions on the field.
Yeah.
So it solves that. It looked like when we took the City players away, it solves the diamond thing as well, because we know Slot is a bit of a disciple of Pep Guardiola.
Yeah.
So we know he kind of wants to build up in a similar way. It gives central dominance because you've got the box midfield almost straight away, doesn't it? You know, you're almost working from that point. Do you think we might see something like this when Mo Salah goes to the African Cup of Nations?
Well, when he goes, I mean, listen, the simplest bit was, if it's Salah and Ekitike, it can be how Liverpool were. You know, Salah's done this for Liverpool, played inside and left the space for Trent to go outside. It was only in recent years that Salah started going wider and Trent started coming inside. And for me, I know this, it's a hard one to say because Trent, numbers-wise, had a lot of assists from going inside and his passing was great. Salah last year, from Trent going inside and being a bit wide, his numbers were the best that he's ever had. However, on the eye test, and if you look at how effective Salah is, and I know this, it doesn't actually make sense based on the data, but just on what I saw, you actually take away now, Salah's biggest asset is not being wide and creating chances. Salah's biggest asset is being in the inside channel, being closer to goal and finishing. In my opinion, that's what his greatest asset for Liverpool is, his ability to score goals. Trent's best asset for me was when him and Robbo both played high and wide, was about delivering crosses.
A David Beckham area of the field almost.
Yeah, and that was for me was their biggest asset. Now I would say Trent is a player where we change systems a little bit to accommodate his brilliance, if you like. I think Conor Bradley is a more linear player.
Yeah,
I think he's more a straight line player. I think Frimpong's a more straight line player. I think Salah now, as he gets older, he's not going to get any quicker. He's still got a huge amount to offer. But now you want to say to him, well, listen, rather than being outside and having to run on the outside, if you're a little bit closer to goal, then you can use your intelligence a little bit better. and you're closer to goal to be able to do what your best asset is at this moment in time, which is scoring goals for Liverpool.
I think the other thing is as well, when you're out there and you got chalk on your boots on the touchline, there's a lot of bodies between you and that goal.
Yeah.
And when you're inside, in simple terms, there's less bodies between you and that goal.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. But then even so, you can have it like that, or if you've got when he goes away to the African, now you've got, Haaland. I said in the last podcast that arguably the best centre forward over the last few years in the Premier League. Haaland's the best centre forward in the Premier League over the last few years, but he's second best. Do you know what I mean? So you've got an unbelievable striker. You've got someone who's come here and lit the place up, and then you've got a generational talent. Now, I think when he's out here, I think this player, I think he genuinely needs to be given freedom. When he plays here, he goes drifting inside. When he plays as a 10, he runs there, he goes everywhere. If he's there, it allows him the freedom to go wherever he wants.
And also, crucially, he's got a safety net behind him.
He has. And also, what he also needs is, he needs players that are on the same wavelength as him, right? He needs players that are in front of him so he can play the pass. When he's playing as a 10, and you say you've got Ekitike, you've got Salah here, right? Who's out there, and then you've got a lot of times it's Gakpo that's here that are there. When he gets it, he's really only got, because these are so wide, he's really only got one option to play with. Whereas if all of a sudden now you've got Ekitike, you've got Salah, right, or you've got now you've got these people can create the width. Now you've got Wirtz that can play in here, but now he's got players closer to him that he can combine with. I think we need to get on the same wavelength as Wirtz, and I think that because I think he needs options ahead of him to play with, and I think that by giving him the protection of 3 behind, I'd probably, if I'm honest, do that. He's got the legs to play there, either or.
Maybe more of a conductor.
Yeah, maybe he could do that. Maybe he could be central. I also think you've got Curtis Jones, you've got Endo. Yeah, so if you really need a defensive one, there's no one better defensively in our squad than Endo of playing there. You could do that. You could have Curtis Jones in there. There's a few different options you could have. But all of a sudden now, what this also does is it protects these two a little bit more. I think the midfield structure, because Szoboszlai, if he's been the deeper one, likes to run forward, it's left Gravenberch by himself. If it's McAllister who likes to, or a lot of times, although we've had 2 in there, it's only been 1 because one of the other ones has gone forward. These 2 need protection. They need a little bit of protection. And I just think that for me, I would just, whether it happens, whether it doesn't happen, I just think that it solves a lot of the problems. That solves a lot of the problems.
I'm looking at that, right, and I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm just going to put McAllister back in and put Gravenberch in for now because the 3 of them. I also like the idea of the rotations between these 3 and those 3. I think that gives us more options as well. I think him being on the outside of a compact area is good because he's a great passer of the football, so you maybe want him on the outside looking in, giving him an option to play that pass. I think Szoboszlai's actually shown this season that he's got quite a deft touch on the and he's got that big switch as well, which could be helpful for maybe a Robertson. So I must admit, I do like this. It was brought up to me in conversation. These, obviously, you generally don't both go at the same time, but what would happen? Because
you can.
You think they would go at the same time?
You 100% can. So if you
Chelsea did that under Tuchel a lot, didn't he?
But we did it when we had Klopp, Henderson, and Wijnaldum on the side. So if they both go, if you look at it right, if they both go, this player now becomes a fullback, right? This player now comes across, and now what you've got is this player's in, he can be up. This player just comes inside. And what you've now got is you've always got, what we say is you want options, but you want protection. Now, with 3 in midfield, Now Van Dijk doesn't want to be here where he was when we conceded the goal. That's the last place he wants to be, and you don't want him out wide. You want him to be able to stay central, because his main job is, if a ball comes into the box, you defend the ball into the box. So he can now stay central. And now you've got this player that drops in. What it also does is the rotation, right? The rotation. If you've got a defender here and the rotation of that player running forward, right? What does this player do? Does the wide player go with Robertson? Because if he goes with Robertson, now if you've got the ball, now McAllister can get on the ball in those areas that we showed Bernardo Silva earlier. And what you can also do in this formation, if you've got, we spoke about earlier about creating build-up diamonds, which we know, if the disciple of a lot of people, we say disciple of Guardiola. Guardiola was a disciple of Cruyff, and a lot of what Barcelona do still is relevant today. But if you want to create the build-up diamonds, if Van Dijk's central, right? If Van Dijk's in a wider position, right? Mm-hmm. Now this player checks inside, and this one can check down, and you've got a build-up diamond, right? And you've got protection with the midfield one coming in here in the build-up. If, for whatever reason, Van Dijk's central, right? Van Dijk's central. Now, Robbo can run away. McAllister can check outside. Ekitike can come down. The 6 comes across, and now you've still got a build-up diamond with these 4 now as well. And then you've always got, I used to call this the overload, the joker. So you've got, this player can come in and always create the extra man. So you can build up in the half spaces. You've got always left and right option. You've got protection in the half spaces in the defensive side. And I just think it suits the players that we've got.
That's the crucial point, isn't it? Because if we sort of put it back to where they normally are, you said at the very start of this, the profile of these, probably 3, maybe 4 if you include Jones, maybe 5 if you include Endo. They, for you, don't suit a 2. But when you're talking this through, they do suit, I think, what you're proposing here.
Well, the thing... If you're not an expert defensively, you look at Man City. Man City lost Rodri last season, and the team because he is not unique, but a very, very rare player that has the ability to control the game with and without the ball, and he can also defend and win the ball back. And he was the glue that kept everything together. It's such a key role for me. If you don't have a Rodri type player that can do that, then you might need one more body, because then you share the load of the defending. So if Szoboszlai can run, but he's not great defensively in terms of winning the ball back, and if you've got McAllister who can actually win the ball back in smaller areas but doesn't have the legs to cover bigger areas to win it back, give him less distance to cover. If you've got Szoboszlai, who, as we just said, can run and get there, but might not be the winner back, give him an extra player to help him win it back. Same with Gravenberch, same with Curtis Jones. It's like you're basically, you're setting your players up for success by giving them, looking at the strengths and weaknesses, analysing what they can and can't do, and then putting them in positions where they can be successful. Watching Liverpool this season, you can talk about a lot of new players and taking time to gel. But you tell me, I felt at times it looks like we've had square pegs in round holes at times. And it looks like we're trying to accommodate players rather than playing a system. It looks like we're trying to fit players into a system that we want to play rather than playing a system that suits the players that we actually have. And
I've said on this, on Redmen consistently, I think it's fair to say over the last few weeks that the coach's job is to lay the foundation for the players to shine. Yeah. And that is, I think, what you've just said there. It's putting them in a system that suits them and their profile as players, because then you give them something to work on. Don't shoehorn them into something that probably doesn't suit them as players.
I agree. And it's a fine line, right? Because you can, we can do what we want on a board, right? And it all sounds great. Liverpool would have done, when they brought in the players, the amount of planning and that would have gone into, we'll bring this player in, we'll bring this player in. They knew Ekitike could play on the left, right? If they played a 4-2-3-1, if they wanted to play him on the left, they could play him on the left. They knew Wirtz could play as a 10. They knew if they brought Isak in as well, he can play as a 9. You know, Ekitike can play as a 9. They know all these things. But then when you actually put it on the grass and you actually put it into practice and you've got opposition that are trying to fuck up everything that you're trying to do.
Which in a completely almost different way to last season as well, because it was all low block last season. Yeah. And so he buys technical players, he buys players who are good in possession of the football, trying to break teams down. Yeah. And then they go to this yard dog style football against us all almost at once. Like the league had a meeting and went, let's fuck them up this way around.
But football goes in cycles. I mean, the long throws come back. Yeah. You know, and it's like...
And then someone remembers that the Hordens can be brought in.
Yeah.
Which is what Sunderland did at the weekend. And then that gets answered and then something else starts again. And it's the same every few years.
And that's it. For me, it's about being flexible with your ideas. I think, Arne, one of the things that makes you successful as a manager is having complete conviction in your ideas. You know, and believing 100% that your way of doing things is right. And there's a fine balance between doing what you think is right and being patient and having the confidence to let it happen. And that's the skill of a manager, is being able to realise, okay, this is going to work given time. Or, do you know what? I don't have the players to play this way yet. I'm going to have a temporary solution to the way I want to play to get results now.
Do you think that's why we've seen McAllister, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai all feature in the centre in those three positions in the middle of the park over the last 3 games? Do you think that is a recognition that he needs to get a few results and do something more similar to last season?
Yeah, maybe. I think you know, and look, the Man City one was a sore one because we were a little bit outclassed. But I mean, that's why it was a little bit sore. Not in terms of the scoreline, yes. Not in terms of the XG and things like that. But when you watch the game, we got outclassed. And I think that they kept control of the game without trying to score after they got the goals. So like you've got to, although you look at the chances they created, they didn't need to create chances when the goal's ahead. They just needed to control the ball. Liverpool actually had the better chances in the second half by far. But I just, it's a tough one because the 2 games before Villa and Real Madrid, it was, you know, you're looking and you're going, maybe this. So I don't want to.
The league's not dead.
Yeah, I don't want to say that you know what I mean. This is what needs to be done. But what the other thing that you've got to factor in is, especially the Real Madrid game, the crowd didn't give the players a choice. The crowd was electric, you know, and that can't be underestimated, the impact that the fans have in the performance of the team. Whereas you don't get that, do you, when you go away to Man City?
Especially not in a 1,000th league game where they make a big deal of that, and that injects energy into the crowd and everything else, doesn't it? But as for all of this, we still don't know what would have happened had Liverpool's correctly scored goal been not ruled offside.
What are your thoughts on that? I know it's been spoke about a lot. But
look, for me, I don't understand how the same referee can look at the same situation 2 different times and come up with 2 different answers.
Yeah.
I don't think he was in. My biggest thing, and I mentioned this on the Originals podcast, is when the assistant referee, the linesman, calls him offside, Paul, he says he's obstructing the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I believe that someone in an assistant referee's position cannot tell, because of his perspective, whether Andy Robertson is in front of the goalkeeper or not. He should call him for offside because he's standing in an offside position. I'm fine with that. But somebody else has to add the context of the perspective. And because it was called offside 13 seconds later, by the way, because it was called offside and because he'd said it was in his viewpoint, then I can totally understand why they've then backed themselves into a corner to say, yeah, we called it offside. Is it clear and obvious? It felt to me like protecting of referees and assistant referees and their on-field decisions more than anything else. And I don't agree with it.
No, I think the bigger problem for me is I don't think the rules are clear enough. I think you can find whatever you want. You can find enough evidence in the rules to make an argument either way. I don't think Donnarumma could have got there.
Yeah, I don't think it affected his dive either.
No,
that's where he wanted his dive.
But I think you can look at it the other way and say, if you Andy Robbo, Man City, when corners get cleared, right, or when corners get swung in, they squeeze out quickly. If the ball goes back, they squeeze out and leave people offside. Now, you've got to look at Andy Robbo and go, could he have got back onside quicker, as well? Because you can be, but I do think from my point of view, it's the inconsistency that if the same referee hadn't given the goal in the previous game,
the Wolves City game you're talking about last season,
if he hadn't given the goal in the same game, then you can look and okay, well at least he's consistent. But for me, the problem is the inconsistency, and he makes one decision on one day and a different decision on the next.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. So there you go. That's Pressing Matters for this week, Paul. Thank you very much. Illuminating, really interesting as ever. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. Guessing we'll have guests next time around. We've got so many lines up, but getting them nailed down to a date is very difficult because they're big guests and they're important people, and that's what Pressing Matters is all about. So on the next show, Paul, we'll have two big guests. It's going to be a belter, of course, and hopefully it'll be after a Liverpool win.
I hope so. No, but listen, like if you look, the last two we've won 2 out of the last 3, and it can't be a little bit of a Man City are a good side,
and it's at the Etihad,
and it's at the Etihad. Yeah, and it's a tough place to go. So it's not. But for me, it was more. It wasn't losing to Man City. It wasn't even the 3-0. For me, it was just the dominance of Man City, and not in terms of possession. I think Liverpool had more possession in the end. Not in the first half. But in the second half, when Man City didn't need to attack. But that first half, really, Man City totally controlled it. I think the tactics from Guardiola, and listen, Paul Dalglish is there as well. It was up and down the technical area all game. So obviously he's had an impact in it as well. But that central, us not being able to control the central areas of the pitch against direct play, and against teams that want to overload the middle of the pitch and use a short passing style as well, is a concern and something that we need to find a solution to moving forward this season. Absolutely. So let's hope Liverpool can do that and do that quickly, because we are a few points behind and we're in a battle for top 4. Paul, thank you so much for joining me again, and we'll see you next time on Pressing Matters.